So yesterday we went for this magnificent hike in Zion National Park, and we weren't planning on it.
Beyond epic. Particularly in COVID times, I might say.
We ended up taking our e-bikes up the scenic drive, and we saw all of these pull-offs for trailheads, and we decided that at one of these trailheads we would pull off and go for a hike. And we didn't know which one. We got to the end of the drive, and Michael spoke to a ranger.
Well, the ranger was emptying the trash, and I turned to Jessica and I said, she's gonna know her stuff. She knows this park better than anybody else. And I walked up to her. She's all masked up. She kind of looks like a ninja heading off into the woods or something. And I asked her, I said, if you could go on just one hike while you're here, just one thing, what would you do? And she said, Angel's Landing has been closed, and it just opened back up. You need to ride down the hill and do Angel's Landing.
And so we hadn't done any prior research. She didn't really describe what the hike was like.
No, she said about an hour, and she said you could also do Emerald Pool. That's about 40 minutes. And I said baby hikes, and she laughed and said, yeah.
You didn't tell me that. So, we start making our way up the trail, and it's got a lot of switchbacks and quite a bit of elevation gain.
And to give you an idea, you went up 500 feet in elevation gain per mile. So it's pretty substantial. She had out because the day before you hadn't had success with your knee on our first hike. So this hike you had your harpoons with you.
My hiking poles.
And mine wouldn't work for this because my hiking poles are for dirt, and we're on a sidewalk going up a steep thing. So I kind of put them away. And she's just gone, man. I'm trying to keep up, and she is just gone.
Yeah, well, it's very kind of you to say, but when we were e-biking, I was actually using my battery, and you were not.
Cool. Let's go for it.
So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like, wow, I'm actually like pretty fit. And we get to the top-ish. Right before you get to the part with the chains that you hold on to. And we're on this, not Angel's Landing, but another landing. And Michael's like, take a photo of me jumping up and down.
Because if she took the right angle, it would look like, I'm jumping with this huge drop-off behind me.
And there's a few feet behind him and a few feet to this.
Not just a few feet. There's like 10, 20 feet.
No, there's not 20 feet.
I would have had to jump, leap backwards, and roll to fall off of this thing.
Mysterious things have happened to you before.
It would have taken a giant gust from the angel of death.
Yes.
Going.
And you have experienced voodoo gusts of wind.
Giant gusts from angels who wanted me to live. With new parts.
Yeah. With many, many broken bones. We finished the botched photo shoot, mm-hmm. and we start making our way back to the main trail where the chains start. And I noticed that I start sneezing and sniffling.
I must say, the chains are, because nobody's carabinering in, you have to hold on to the chains, and at some point it is so steep that you literally could not do it if you weren't weight-bearing on these giant chain rails to actually hoist your way up or down.
Anyway, I start sneezing and my nose starts running, and at first I think, oh, maybe it's because it's a little windy up here, so I put on my windbreaker, and then I'm not feeling cold, and I keep sneezing and my nose keeps running, and finally I'm like, oh, maybe I have allergies, but nobody else has allergies. So I'm really confused, and I can barely focus on what I'm doing.
She's turned into a sniveling wreck. She finally, I've learned, carry tissue for the Pookie. And she's going, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I would have been fine. But then she went through a third of a roll, a quarter of a roll of toilet paper in about 5 minutes. And then she was back to where she was. In fact, she started asking, do you have a hat? She even used my mask.
Yeah, I used 2 of your masks. I used one which is like
as tissue,
kind of like a scarf that you pull up as a hanky, and then that one was sopping wet. So then I started using his mask, and then that was sopping wet, and then later we found one of my hats, and I started using that. And the whole time I'm also a little self-conscious that people are gonna think I'm up there with COVID. Eventually, I realized the next day, today, that it wasn't allergies, it was a cold. Because every time I had something hot to drink or hot to eat, I'd feel better. And I was actually relieved that I had a cold and not allergies, because the pollen count's low. It doesn't make sense to be allergic. And if I was allergic to some mysterious thing, then the mind starts to think, oh my gosh, is it an autoimmune disease? Am I doomed? Like, it's crazy.
It was interesting that it went from nothing to...
Yeah, it was just... And I think it had to do with the PTSD.
Because she's seen me, she's been with me for my second near-death experience on a hiking trail. And so it makes sense.
I think that was the trigger. So we did a pretty intense bike ride and then a pretty intense hike, because we were going at a pretty quick pace. And then you jumping up and down, it just, no pun intended, pushed me over the edge.
Not a good thing to say up there.
The fact that I got a cold is a good sign, because oftentimes, at least for me, when you go through a really stressful experience, your adrenaline is on high, and that adrenaline keeps you from getting sick. Like when you were in the hospital after your near fatal accident, I like didn't sleep because I was just paranoid that your little beep heart beepy thing would go beep. I don't know why I'm laughing.
I had no idea.
It's not funny. But I couldn't sleep because I wanted to make sure it was still beeping.
We may have some more work to do.
I'm laughing, but there are also tears. Okay.
It's interesting. I was out on a mountain bike ride a few days ago when we were in St. George, and I've thought about that too, that I don't want to do any jumps, I don't want to do any this, I don't want to do any that, because I don't want to get hurt and anything for Jessica and the kiddos. And
because then I have to drive this thing.
Oh, shit.
Me getting sick was a sign that my body was relaxing. That my body felt like, okay, it's safe to rest. And whenever I've gotten a cold, they don't usually last very long, just sometimes they're only 24 hours. But I take them as opportunities to just be. Like it's my body saying, please let's rest.
Off switch, fuse. But it has to do with that theme of the fuse, which maybe we'll go to or not. But your body flipped the off, or it flipped the, how did you say it? It tripped the fuse.
Yeah. And so today, for the first time, I took a very long nap and a very long time. And there's so much beauty around us. And there's so many things, so many hikes we could go on, so much to explore. And there are people all around, and everyone's being so active, and I'm looking out the window going, that looks really nice. I want to do that. But I'm also really happy just being in the RV, being in my little cocoon, doing nothing. And it gave Michael an opportunity to do a bike ride that I wasn't really interested in.
And cook. For the first time, I cooked in the RV, and I cooked well.
Yeah.
To take care of you. It was an opportunity to take care of you.
So I took this little reprieve as a gift.
So, well, I'm calling. I can look. If I look to my left, the RV is called Journey Express. Express. But actually, I'm calling her the slow boat. And the more I slow down and cut things out, the better. I think we can, sort of like we donated a lot of our possessions. If we have a third of our possessions, if we do a third of the activities, if we move at a third of the pace, if we stay at places 3 times longer, something special about that 3 there, we feel so much better. As soon as we try to cram that one more thing in, like even dinner last night, everything goes haywire. I just want to fit one more thing. And so we're both learning, I think, how much less is more. And not to say, well, and we weren't going to be coming to Zion. We were going to the Grand Canyon, which was several more hours away. But at the last moment, the RV wanted to veer to a place where we're told is full, there's no parking, there's no way you're getting into this, to that, the other. But it was closer. And so what did we do?
You turned.
Oh, yeah. And even getting in through the front gate, the gate attendant, the ranger, she didn't even want to look. She looked at the size of our RV and she's in panic that we might try to go through a tunnel that's 11 foot high and we're 12 foot high. She didn't want to see the park pass. She didn't give us a map. She was just making us swear up and down that we wouldn't try it because she's like, it's full, you're no place to park, you're going to end up U-turning, there's nowhere for you to go. You can drive through the oversized parking, but you're not going to find a place. And I said, well, if by some miracle we do. And we drove around, and at first we didn't see a place. But we took our time. And then you said what?
I don't know.
Somebody's pulling out! Because we moved
Slow.
Very, very
slowly.
The slow boat.
We've already started talking about what's going to happen at the end of this trip. And I think at this point, those conversations are what you would call, I don't know if it's okay to say.
Go for it.
Okay.
I don't know what you're going to say.
Scott can edit this out. Michael has this term he calls mental masturbation. Where you can
That's better than the other term. I thought you were going to go with cluster fudge.
No, where you can think and think and think and think about what the next move is, but you're not going to get anywhere because you don't have enough information yet.
Correct.
You have to have these experiences first before you know what your next move is. Mm-hmm. So we could think and think about what it would be like to live in Sedona, but until we're there together, spending time and experiencing it, we're not going to know.
And I think you haven't, from a slow boat perspective, you haven't given universe time to give you the signs and symbols. It's only when we get there and we listen that we'll get like Bozeman. We were routed into Bozeman past construction, traffic circle, construction circle, construction. And we're like, all right, there's a message here for us.
And the listening could be listening to the people that we bump into.
Yeah.
Like people who lived in Bozeman telling us it's getting scary.
Yes, absolutely.
About how they're thinking about moving out of Bozeman, or walking into a grocery store and having a conversation and then listening to the music, the song that's playing, and the phrase that you hear right after you've asked your question. Sometimes there's an answer there.
If it's singing Get Out. I'm getting out. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Getting out. Or moving out. I'm moving out. Billy Joel, because we heard that. when we were talking about leaving Colorado a month and a half ago, and all of a sudden it's Billy Joel singing "I'm Moving Out."
And then we were in Walmart and you were talking about how it's time to check out, and then we hear this other woman in another aisle say it's time to go.
And so we need that opportunity. It's sort of like when we moved to Maui. You can read all the guidebooks you want, but until you get there, you have no idea what's going to feel good.
Yeah.
Which, the last note that I have is, if we look at the next 2 weeks, other than Sedona, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what we're doing.
I know, because now it appears that we are cutting out the East Coast, although we haven't spoken to our parents about this yet. But we both had a discussion where we put our feet in our parents' shoes and decided that they would be telling us that it's a better idea to stay here and figure out where our next home is, instead of going over there and stressing ourselves out.
I think if my parents knew the current situation, they would forbid me.
Fortunately, our parents love us very much and they want the best for us.
This is true.
And we're going to listen to the parents in our heads.